at the intersection of all four in a recent presentation by Peter Pruce on ORD innovation to the agency's Scientific Advisory Board and Board of Scientific Counselors. Shown on the next slide is that same Venn diagram where we have identified specific projects within those four research areas that we think G2G supports. For example, there are some dashboards for the Office of Pesticides being developed in the chemical safety and sustainability area. Under the Air, Climate, and Energy, there's a modeling and decision support project, as well as in the Safe and Healthy Communities decision analysis and support. Next slide. In terms of what we view as the current problem in the process and the promise of our process that's illustrated in this slide, if you look down the middle column, as we've already mentioned, there's a lot of data. In particular, if you're just thinking about risk assessment, where often you're trying to ascertain whether an exposure is acceptable or not relative to health or ecological effects, just looking at those two, a lot of data with respect to source and chemical data and on the exposure side often goes to different offices that are unfortunately essentially siloed in the agency. So Lyle and my office, the National Center for Environmental Assessment, may take that data, develop a point estimate for an exposure assessment, and meanwhile, other offices, regions, states, and other programs are doing the same thing. The Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards, for example, OAQPS, might develop a different point estimate. The regions, for their own needs, develop point estimates themselves as well. Sometimes they're using the same data, sometimes they're using different data, sometimes they're using the same data in a different fashion, and oftentimes those inconsistencies are A, not transparent, and B, often, when they are revealed, considered to be inconsistent and problematic in that we are not consistent across applications in the agency. Another problem is that, as you'll see, that decision diamond of the exposure assessments does not necessarily communicate then with the next part of the chain in that sequence of potential modeling, which is the health and environmental effects data, which are evaluated and used to develop those response analysis estimates. So again, point estimates might be derived in different laboratories within ORD and SEA, the assessment office, or the Health and Environmental Effects Research Laboratory, or the different regions. Those risk assessments need to be interfaced with the exposure assessments for seamless and comprehensive risk characterization. So our proposed platform on the right would hope to do exactly that, to have a one-shop place to go from fate, transport, and transformation models, propagate the entire distribution of data through to the next set of models, be they air pollution or other exposure models, water models, to biologically based dose and response models, to cost-benefit analysis models, and most importantly, have the ability to go in the other direction, because often what happens in risk assessment when the silos start arguing about defending their different point estimates is there is often unintended impacts that are not appreciated with respect to assumptions being made in one arena and another. And if they were more seamless, you could actually appreciate what the impacts are, both upstream and downstream. As I mentioned, public access both across the agency and to the public access was a key attribute and feature of the proposal that everyone felt was desirable. Next slide. As an example to further illustrate what those data streams might be that are required in a risk assessment, I just sort of skeletally put out this slide to show how either water or air, other media information can go from GIS to transport and transformation models to exposure models. Again, keeping in mind that model may embody either just an algorithm, a default equation that is used, say, in a regional office to take information from, say, a Superfund site